You did the work, the real work. You went to therapy. You cried on that uncomfortable couch that smells of lemon cleaner. You screamed into your pillow at 3 a.m. You wrote diary entries that read like the confessions of an emotional serial killer. You faced your shadows, those parts of yourself you'd rather seal away in a nuclear bunker and forget forever. You looked your demons straight in the eye, called them by name, like, "Hi, shame, pleasure, fear of abandonment, how's it going, feelings of inadequacy?" And you won. Or so you thought. Because now you're here, sitting on your unmade bed with the sheets smelling of that laundry you did 3 days ago but never hung out on time, and you realize something horrifying. You don't feel like doing anything at all. Zero. Zilch. Nada. That drive that made you jump out of bed at 6 in the morning? Gone. That productive anxiety that made you compile endless to-do lists? Evaporated, like the dignity of a bad job interview. That hunger for success that consumed your insides? It's fallen asleep and isn't answering your calls anymore. If you're nodding along as you listen, if you feel like I'm describing your life right now, write "I'm in the mud" in the comments. That way I'll know you're not alone. That way you'll know you're not broken. And the strangest thing? You're not depressed. Not exactly. You don't have that gray heaviness crushing your chest like a metaphysical elephant. You don't want to disappear. You simply don't want anything. It's as if someone turned off the engine of your existence, and now you're there, idling, wondering if this is what it means to be healed. Spoiler alert, it is, but not in the way you expected. Sit back, because what I'm about to tell you probably won't be written in the self-help books that sold you the illusion of healing as a premium upgrade for your personality. The truth is, when you truly heal, when you integrate those parts of yourself you'd rejected, you don't become an enhanced version of yourself. You temporarily become an empty shell, wondering what the hell you're still doing on this planet. And no, it's not a glitch in the system. It's exactly how it's supposed to be. Let's talk about what happens when you tear away the rotten foundations you've built your entire life on. Because the motivation you had before wasn't real motivation. It was fear disguised as ambition. It was shame in a smart suit and a professional tie. It was the desperate need to prove to the world, and especially to yourself, that you weren't the horrible thing a part of you feared you were. You weren't lazy, so you worked 18-hour days. You weren't stupid, so you accumulated degrees and certifications like stamps. You weren't unworthy of love, so you bent over backwards to please anyone, even the guy who cut you off on the highway. When you do the work of introspection, when you really dig into your shadows and bring them to light, an interesting thing happens. You realize that the stuff you thought you were doesn't exist. You're not lazy. You're just a human being who needs rest. You're not stupid. You simply have areas where you're stronger and others where you're less brilliant, like all mortals breathing oxygen. You're not unworthy of love. You're just a flawed person, just like the 7-odd billion other members of the species. And when this realization hits you like a well-aimed punch to the solar plexus, something strange happens. You no longer need to prove anything. And if you no longer have to prove anything, why would you get out of bed at 5 in the morning to go for a run? Why would you kill yourself on that project you hate, but that proves how capable you are? Why would you accept that dinner invitation with people who drain your soul just so they don't seem antisocial? Exactly. There's no why. And that's where the problem lies, or rather, that's where you fall into a seemingly endless motivational void. This is what happens when you stop projecting your fears onto the outside world. Before, you saw in others everything you refused to see in yourself. You looked at that lazy person on the couch and thought, "I'll never be like them," while you worked yourself to death. You looked at that person who failed and thought, I have to succeed at all costs, while you sacrificed every shred of joy on the altar of productivity. You looked at that rejected person and thought, I have to please everyone, while you transformed into an emotional chameleon with no identity of your own. But when you integrate your shadows, when you accept that you might be lazy, that you might fail, that some people might not stand you, and that's okay, those projections recede like a wave returning to the sea. And suddenly, you find yourself without that frenetic drive that made you run. Because that drive didn't come from an authentic desire. It came from the terror of being the version of yourself you most despised. What now? Now you're standing there in front of the bathroom mirror, toothbrush in hand, dripping toothpaste onto your pajama shirt, and wondering who the hell you really are if you take away all that fear. It's as if you spent years building a skyscraper of anxiety and expectations, and now someone has pressed the controlled demolition button. Boom! Rubble everywhere. And you're there, among the ruins, trying to figure out what to build in its place.
The problem is, no one told you that after demolition comes a period of emptiness, a period in which the soil must rest before anything new can grow. But we live in a society that tells you that every second of inactivity is a second wasted, that if you're not producing, you're useless, that if you don't have goals to achieve, you're a failure. So you feel guilty. You feel broken. You look around and see everyone else running around like crazy hamsters in their wheel, and you wonder why you can't get on that damned wheel anymore. Here's the secret no one tells you. Those other hamsters, they're still running because they haven't done the work you've done. They're still running from their shadows. They're still desperately trying to prove they're not the thing they fear they are. Their motivation is the same as yours. It's false. It's unsustainable. Sooner or later, they too will collapse, or they'll spend their whole lives running without ever stopping to ask themselves where they're going. But you stopped. You looked your fears in the face and said, okay, maybe that's what I am too, so what? And in that moment, you cut off the fuel from the engine that was driving you. But the new fuel, the real one, the one that comes from authentic desire and not fear, hasn't arrived yet. It's like changing the battery in your phone. There's that moment when your phone is completely dead and you just have to wait for the new battery to charge. You can't force it. You can't shake it and yell, "It works, damn it!" You just have to wait. And waiting in a culture that venerates speed and efficiency seems like a crime against nature. But that's exactly what you have to do. You have to sit in this uncomfortable void and wait for something authentic to emerge. And the crazy thing is, while you wait, everyone around you will think you have a problem. Your family will ask, "Are you okay?" in that worried voice they use when they think you're about to have a nervous breakdown. Your friends will tell you, "You just have to push through," as if the problem were a lack of commitment and not a complete reorganization of your psyche. Your boss will look at you as if you've suddenly become lazy, without realizing that you're going through the most important transformation of your life. Because what you're experiencing isn't laziness, it's not depression, it's not failure. It's what happens when an outdated operating system is uninstalled and the new one is yet to be configured. You're in safe mode, and in safe mode, you can't run all the programs that were running before. You have to accept this temporary limitation and trust the process. But trust is hard when the emptiness hurts so much. When you wake up in the morning and the first thing you think is, "What do I do now?" followed by a deafening silence. No answer, no burning desire, no destination calling you, just you and that ceiling staring back, judgmental, as if it too were wondering what the hell you're waiting for. You're waiting for your soul to finish resting, because that thing you called yourself before, that frenetic, ever-moving personality, wasn't really you. It was a mask. A character you played for so long you forgot you were even acting. And when you do the deep work, when you integrate the shadows, that mask falls away. It disintegrates. And underneath, there isn't immediately another ready face. There's only raw, vulnerable flesh that needs to heal before it can show its true form. This is why you feel so exposed, so naked, so fragile. You've spent years building armor, shields, walls of protection, and now you've voluntarily torn them down. Sure, you did it to heal, to be more authentic, to stop suffering, but the immediate result is that now you're there defenseless, and every breeze feels like a hurricane. People don't understand what it means to take off their armor. They think healing is like putting a bandage on a wound and voila, everything's solved. They don't understand that sometimes healing means first breaking the bones that had healed poorly, straightening them, and then waiting for them to heal properly. And that process hurts like hell. It hurts worse than the original wound. But it's the only way to walk straight again. So here you are, with metaphorical broken bones, waiting for them to heal, and everyone asks you why you're not running the marathon. They don't understand that you can't. Not yet. And you shouldn't. Because if you try to run now, you'll break those barely healing bones again, and you'll have to start over. So you have to have the courage to say, I can't, even when it feels like an excuse, even when you feel guilty. Even when the voice in your head, the one that sounds suspiciously like your mother or that asshole high school teacher, tells you you're a failure. You're not a failure. You're in transition. And transitions are always chaotic. Think of the metamorphosis of a butterfly. Inside that chrysalis, the caterpillar dissolves completely. It becomes a shapeless mush. It's no longer a caterpillar, but it's not yet a butterfly. It's just slime. If you open that chrysalis at the wrong time, you'd find only a liquid mess. But if you wait, if you let the process complete, a completely new creature emerges, capable of flight. You're slime now. And yes, it sucks to be slime. Slime can't do anything productive. Slime has no short-term goals. Slime doesn't update his LinkedIn profile. Slime just sits there, dissolving and reassembling itself at the molecular level. But slime is necessary. Without the slime phase, there are no wings.
The problem is you're alone in the chrysalis. No one can go in there with you. No one can speed up the process. You can only go through it, day after day, wondering if it's worth it, if you'll ever get out of there, if maybe you made a huge mistake and should have stayed a caterpillar forever. At least caterpillars know what to do. Crawl, eat leaves, crawl more. Simple, predictable, safe. But you chose metamorphosis. You chose to face your shadows, to heal, to become something more authentic. And now you have to pay the price. And the price is this temporary void, this lack of motivation, this feeling of being suspended in nothingness while everything around you continues to move at breakneck speed. You watch your friends post photos of their victories on Instagram, promotions, exotic vacations, new relationships, new projects. And there you are, still in your pajamas at 3 in the afternoon, staring at the ceiling and wondering if you still remember how to feel excitement. You're not envious exactly, you're just distant, as if you were watching everything from behind glass. They're out there, in the world of the living, doing things, wanting things, and you're here, inside, in this limbo, waiting for something to awaken. And the scariest thing is that you don't know what will reawaken. Because it won't be the old motivation. That's dead, cremated, ashes scattered in the wind. What will emerge will be something completely different, something you don't yet know. And human beings hate the unknown. We prefer familiar suffering to the uncertainty of change. At least in suffering, we know where we are. But you chose uncertainty. You chose to leap into the void without knowing where you'll land. And now you're in free fall. And the rational part of your brain screams, "What the hell did you do?" While something deeper, something that can't express itself with words, whispers, "Trust." Trust is terrifying when you can't see the bottom, when the days follow one another empty, without that sense of progress that made you feel alive. When you wake up and realize another week has passed and you haven't done anything significant by the world's standards. No tangible results, no milestones achieved. Just days spent existing, breathing, letting the slime do its silent work. And all those motivation gurus, the ones who shout from their YouTube videos with their perfect smiles and seemingly flawless lives, seem alien to you. They talk about morning routines, SMART goals, visualizing success. And you look at them as if they're speaking a dead language. Because all those tricks work for people who are still running from their shadows. For those who use productivity as an anesthetic. But you've stopped running. You've faced what you were running from. And now you don't need anesthetics. You need silence, space, time to regroup on a level those gurus never even touched. Because the work you've done is profound. It's not a superficial habit change. It's not a new productivity app. It's a complete overhaul of your psyche. It's like demolishing a dilapidated house and building a new one from the ground up. And no one builds a foundation in a weekend. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes the ability to stand there on the construction site, looking at what seems like just a hole in the ground, and believe that one day there will be a solid structure. But it's hard to believe when your parents call you worriedly asking if you found a new job, when your former colleagues tag you on LinkedIn and jobs that might interest you, with that condescension disguised as helpfulness. When your partner looks at you with those eyes that say, "When will you go back to being the same old you?" without realizing that the old you were was a hologram, a projection, a persona invented to survive in a world that punishes authenticity. You won't go back to the way you were before. You can't. Because the way you were before no longer exists. It's been deconstructed, analyzed, integrated. Its best parts have been salvaged, its toxic parts have been composted. And now you're waiting for someone new to emerge, someone you don't yet know. Someone who might scare you because they'll be so different from who you thought they should be. And when it finally emerges, when you feel that first spark of authentic desire, it won't be like the old motivation. It won't be frantic. It won't be anxious. It won't be that flame that burns fast and strong and then dies out, leaving you exhausted. It will be something calmer, deeper, like a steady ember instead of a flash of lightning. And at first you'll think it's too weak, that it's not enough, that you needed that high, dramatic flame from before. But that flame was consuming you. That flame was burning you along with everything else. This ember, however, is sustainable. You can stoke it for years without burning out. You can follow it without destroying yourself. You can create something lasting instead of spectacular. And in a world obsessed with the spectacular, the lasting seems boring. But the lasting is what remains when the show is over and everyone goes home. So yes, you're here without motivation, without that drive you once knew, and you feel lost. But you're not lost. You're exactly where you need to be. You're in the most important phase of the process. The phase everyone wants to skip but no one can avoid if they want true transformation. You're in the fertile void, in the darkness before the dawn, in the silence that comes before the music. And I know it hurts. I know you watch others live their noisy lives and wonder if you made the right choice. I know you wake up in the middle of the night with that panicked feeling of, I've wasted years, or I'll never amount to anything, or I've done everything wrong. I know, because it's part of the process. Doubt is part of the process. Fear is part of the process. The emptiness, that damned emptiness that seems never ending, is part of the process. But let me tell you something. This emptiness is sacred. It's the space where your true self can finally breathe. It's the silence where your soul can finally speak without having to scream over the din of fear and shame. It's the darkness where your true desires can blossom, far from the dazzling light of other people's expectations.
So stay here, in the void, in the confusion, in the lack of motivation. Stay here without judging yourself, without forcing yourself, without trying to go back to the way you were before. Stay here and listen, really listen, because something is whispering beneath the surface, something that couldn't be heard when you were too busy running, something just waiting for you to stop long enough to emerge. And when it emerges, when that first authentic desire peeks out timidly, like a bud in spring, acknowledge it, honor it, even if it seems small, even if it seems silly, even if it doesn't make sense according to the logic of the world, because that is your new beginning. That is proof that the metamorphosis is working. That is confirmation that going through all this hell was worth it. And one day, I don't know when, you'll look back and understand. You'll understand that this empty time wasn't wasted time. It was the greatest gift you could give me. It was the space you needed to die like a caterpillar and be reborn with wings. It was the price of authenticity, and it was worth every single day of confusion. If this video made you feel less alone, if someone finally put into words what you thought was just your flaw, leave a like. Not because of the algorithm, but because that click says, I'm going through this too, and that's okay. It's an act of rebellion against those who tell you you should be healed already. Let me know in the comments where you are now. Still in the mud? Have you felt the first real spark? If you want real content, without cheap motivational filters and promises of instant healing, subscribe. Here you'll find the raw truth about what it means to do inner work. See you in the next video. And remember, if you didn't do anything productive today, that's okay. You're getting real.